Hi, this is TheHande again, doing another rambly Formula 1 video. This is already my third one. I didn't originally plan to even make more than one, and a couple of people have been listening in on this, so I don't know, maybe I can keep this up. Yeah, I don't know, maybe not, but anyway, the reason I wanted to do another rambly video, and this time I'm not going to do a big recap of previous topics. If you want to know what these rambly videos are about, go watch the other two rambly videos. Otherwise, you're going to find this kind of boring or difficult to follow. But man, this Formula 1 season, it started off on quite an interesting note in more ways than one. So there's 4 things in this rambly video that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to get to the most interesting one that if you are listening to this is probably the one you're interested in anyway. And if you've been following the news at all, this is probably the one topic that you have heard of. And that's Kimi Räikkönen's accident in the Bahrain Grand Prix during his second pit stop. So it was a really bad pit stop, to say the least. For one thing, something that happened also to the Haas cars in the first race of the season, the Australian Grand Prix. Räikkönen had some problems with a rear tire not getting attached properly. But that was the least of his problems, and the least of Ferrari's problems, because it of course meant that Räikkönen had to retire from the race. No, the real problem was the unsafe release of Räikkönen's car, which meant that the mechanic who was holding the tire got run over and his leg was broken in 2 places. So I want to stress this, however. So the mechanic was severely, not fatally, injured. I know that's a slim silver lining, to say the least. And this has not been good for Ferrari for a number of reasons. Like they lost one car out of the race. They have an injured mechanic now, and the FIA slapped them with a 50,000 euro fine for an unsafe release. I thought I also read that there might be some other consequences, maybe like a grid penalty for Räikkönen in the next race, but maybe I'm remembering incorrectly. I mean, certainly, having to bow out of the race when Ferrari and Mercedes are neck and neck in the championship. Well, neck and neck is a little, well, yeah, in the constructors' championship at least, would be pretty bad. But this actually has brought up the Finnish. The Finnish network that reports on Formula 1's and broadcasts Formula 1's MTV, not the same you're thinking of. This is a different MTV. They reported on this thing, and they've been talking about, like, have pit stops in Formula 1's gotten now kind of dangerously fast. And what they were getting at is, of course, is that back in 2010, there was a rule change, a big regulation change in Formula 1's. Before 2010, when cars had pit stops, they would change their tires. If there was something stuck in the wings, they could get it out. And if, like, the front nose wing was broken, they could take it off and put a new one on. The same kind of stuff that they do now. But what they also used to do back then was that they used to refuel cars. So there was a fuel rig, and then there was a big-ass hose, and it was kind of like snap into place. It would be refueled while they changed the tires normally. It would, like, shoot fuel really fast, snap off, car down, off on your merry way. And what changed that was the regulation changed that F1 cars had to now start a Formula 1 race with a full tank of gas, 1, and 2, they actually had to have enough gas to not just run the entire length of the circuit, but they also had to have enough left over to give a fuel sample to the FIA after the race, or possibly risk disqualification. Which is why sometimes in certain races we've seen actually F1 drivers finish a race and still leave the car like on the side of the road just so that it would have enough fuel for the fuel test. And obviously the car has to still be within legal weight. So that's another aspect. There's a lot of technicalities over here. So taking out refueling was a big deal because it basically just meant that the only thing that was being done on the pit stops was changing tires. And they had to even introduce a rule which is still in effect that during a race, every driver has to use at least 2 tire compounds. They have 3 to choose from, 2 that they and 2 have to be used during the race. Which kind of, I said this already back then, so I don't get riled up about this a lot. But it took all the excitement out of the pit stops because now the strategy was kind of just based on when did you go in and how quickly you could get your job done, rather than in the past where some drivers would start with a slightly lighter car than others and then would have to refuel a lot more as the race went on, or they started with a really heavy car and only needed to refuel maybe once towards the end of the race. Twice was the norm even back then. So it's led to this awkward situation. And so this is where the MTV's little article on this whole subject was coming from, was, are Formula 1 races, or Formula 1 pit stops now dangerously fast, because it's become really about how quickly, you know, car up, wheels off, wheels on, car down, and go. Like how quick that operation is. And it's not unusual for a pit stop to only take 3 seconds, a little over 3 seconds. That's how goddamn fast those mechanics have to work. And this is not something that this is not the first time this has been brought up. Back in 2010, there was a team called Hispania Racing Team, and I remember either it was Bruno Senna or Karen Chandok, I don't remember which of the two, but I remember there was an incident where one of their cars was being worked on in the pits. There was a guy leaning over the engine compartment, which is behind the driver. They were trying to fix the radio on the car, and the driver takes off. This guy takes a knock on the head, which is serious. Luckily, I think he was wearing a helmet, though. So this is not a new topic. And, well, so what I get out of this is that MTV is asking a very serious and actually poignant question. It's becoming even more poignant now that during this past weekend, either the FIA or just a commission made by the FIA was talking about future potential Formula 1 regulations. Is this something that maybe needs to be taken into account? Because the Haas problem in the Australian round was caused that what they have at these pits nowadays is traffic lights, basically. There's this thing hanging from above that the driver sees. It's hooked up to the bolt guns that are used to attach the tires. So when all the mechanics are done, when all the tires are on, once the car is lowered, it automatically changes that light from red to green, and then that tells the driver go. That's what that whole thing amounted to. And in the Haas team, they weren't able to attach those rear wheels properly, but the system still automatically told the drivers to leave the pits. So they did. And the same thing kind of happened with Räikkönen, that the tire wasn't on properly, but because the bolt gun, the thing that was used to attach the tire had already been taken off, the light went off, and Räikkönen went off, and then then that whole situation happened. So. Because the future regulations and things are being talked about, the real big thing about these regulation talks, though, is the cost cap for F1 teams. That's I think, the thing that's being talked about. It's been talked about for years, but it's like the most significant one. And I think it's a little too early to say that the Formula One teams are super concerned about the safety of their of the pit stops. Of course, they're concerned about the safety of the pit crew. You know, that's why they have. That's the very reason why they wear fire retardant, you know, clothing and helmets. You know, it's not just for show. They do actually serve a purpose. So I'm not convinced yet that there's going to be any new regulation shifts because of this event. And of course, it's you know, it's goddamn awful. Like, you never ever want to see something like that happen in an F1 race. So, but we've had pit incidents in the first two races. Now, if China makes it a third, then we can start maybe seeing that teams are going to get a little concerned about this fact. I think more likely what's going to happen now is that pit crews are training extra hard to make extra precautions to make sure something like this doesn't happen. And only then, if it still happens, then we can start seeing probably changes. But I'm just saying, like, the MTV article was coming from a really good place, but I'm kind of skeptical. I don't think that this is going to be the burning topic that everybody is going to be talking about. I think everybody's... Surprisingly, people were talking about Lewis Hamilton using the word dickhead on the team radio during his little incident with Max Verstappen. And, you know... And Vettel came to his defense, which is like, wow. What... The end times are upon us, it seems. Okay. But there's a couple of other topics I wanted to talk about. So let's move away from all the negativity. There's one slightly bummer thing I need to discuss at the very end. But let's talk about some happy news. Some surprises. Happy surprises in Bahrain. Like I was talking about in my previous Ramble video, was that the teams are really tight. The pack is tight this year. And we saw this in a big way. Like, Toro Rosso was a real big disappointment in Australia. But this race, goddamn, Pierre Gasly, 4th place. 5th in the qualifying, 4th in the race. Like, wow. Toro Rosso switching to Honda engines. Based on Brendan Hartley's performance in the previous race, I thought they were just done for. Like, it was only the first race. That's the thing that I kept repeating. It was only the first race, but it was looking really grim. So now, Pierre Gasly shows you can actually score points with a Toro Rosso car. Hell, you can even beat the entire middle pack with a Toro Rosso car. That's pretty fucking awesome. So Pierre Gasly, like, wins my unofficial MVP award for Toro Rosso, because goddamn, Pierre, like, I talked about this also, that I saw him drive in Formula E's, and I know he's won some championships, but goddamn it, like, I did not expect this. This was awesome. Now, the thing that I am a little disappointed about was Brendan Hartley, who was the last man on track for the second race in a row, which seems to be slightly negatively indicating where he's going to be ending up at the end of the season. But like I said, but this is only the second race. It's one extra data point. We can probably draw a little bit more conclusions. Like, I was a little surprised that McLaren did so poorly compared to the previous race, but then again, you could say that they did so well because the Haas cars didn't score points this time. And there was also that Kevin Magnussen did score points, Romain Grosjean did not. Brendan Hartley was involved in the crash with Sergio Perez, and he didn't score points either because he spun out at the very, very start of the race and wasn't able to make up the ground. Like I said, performance is really tight. Really, really even this year. So, yeah, so Toro Rosso got some points, and Force India finally did get points thanks to Esteban Ocon. So this is positive. This is a really, really good development. And this, if Gasly can keep this up, Honda might finally start to look like an actually attractive engine constructor. Now the thing here is that we need to see still how far can the Honda engines go this season? Because of course this season Gasly had already technical difficulties in the previous race. I hope it wasn't the engine, because let's remember 3 engines this year. So that's what's really going to decide things. And Red Bull, unfortunately, my God, Daniel Ricciardo, just out of the blue, his car breaks down. Max Verstappen at least crashed or had a tire puncture before he retired, but it looks like it was unrelated to the tire puncture. Like it looks like he had technical difficulties as well. So yeah, things are not looking good for Red Bull. But Toro Rosso, if Brandon Hartley can now score points, actually like bring the game up a little bit, like man, they could be set. They could have a really good season ahead of them. And there's again, it seems like I am constantly not 2 weeks. No, sorry, 3 weeks, 4 weeks since I dropped my first insult to Marcus Ericsson for this year. Did we see Sauber actually scoring points in the second race? And I've been thinking about this. I've been really racking my brain about this. Is this good or is this bad? Because Marcus Ericsson just had 2 seasons at Sauber with no points. Last time he scored points was in 2015. So, is this a good thing? Well, Charles Leclerc was 13th or 14th. So, actually, if Leclerc can score points, then, because I took Leclerc's for his word when he said that there was no chance in hell Sauber was going to score points this year. And you know, he's young. He doesn't know how to lie. That's why I believed him. But maybe he was underselling the car's performance. So yeah, I'm just going to take this as a positive. So you know, I may have no respect for Marcus Ericsson as a driver anymore. But the fact that he was able to score points is at least indicating that Sauber may not be as screwed as I thought they would be, and I think that's a positive. I'm gonna definitely look at this as a positive for Sauber because, yeah, I did not seriously see that coming. Expect it, and 9th, not even 10th, 9th, faster than Ocon. Well, maybe he beat him on the pit stops, but yeah, that was a goodie. And then, of course, because Force India and Sauber both scored points, this unfortunately means that there is only one team left that has not scored points this after the first 2 rounds of the season. And let me just be very candid here that this is not the point at which where you bury your head in shame and say it's all done for, there's nothing we can do. I mean, there have been teams that have gone 5 races in without scoring points. Some have gone half the season without scoring points. So 2 races is still just 2 races. But I think after 2, like I said, it's another data point on the blip. So I think Williams are maybe slightly in panic mode now, because this is the second race and no points. Lance Stroll and Sergei Sorokin were unable to do anything with those cars. And this makes me worried. This makes me really worried. Lance Stroll is a good driver. We can say that. Based on the previous season, we can say that Lance Stroll is a pretty good driver. Sergei Sorokin's talents still are to be proven, but he's on his rookie season. Like I said, there's still not a lot of pressure for him. But man, I'm really starting to get worried for Williams. I have not been this worried for Williams since those fuck-up years when they were like doing stupid shit, like not attaching tires to their cars properly, when they were underperforming, like post BMW Williams, when BMW basically bought out Sauber for a little while. So yeah, I'm really hoping that they can get their act together, but I can't really add much to that. But at least I want to say, like, it's good to see that almost all the teams have scored points. I just wish Williams wasn't the only one that hasn't. Like, it hurt when it was McLaren. Now it actually does hurt when it's Williams as well. So yeah, I guess that's as good a point as any to end. I didn't really have a whole lot to say about this, but I think I said more than enough for this part. And yeah, I haven't had the comments on for the previous 2 videos, but I think I'll leave them on now. If you think if you find this video interesting, if you want me to make more of these, I probably won't. I know I've said that 2 times in a row already, but I mean it seriously. I don't mean to make this into a series. But if people want this to be a series, leave a comment below and tell me if you think this is at all interesting to listen to, because I'll stop. I will stop. I mean, there are better ways for me to just ramble on in a video format. But yeah, thank you for listening. If you did listen, I'm TheHande, and see you on the next one.